person who is going to get the cookie is back, right? So I'll just talk for a minute. But you can hear me, right? Yeah, okay. Because if you can't, raise your hand and scream or something. If you ever can't hear anyone, raise your hand, because we don't want to lose any words.
Tell her to come in the back door.
So someone's on the phone that they're talking to. Maybe someone is coming. But I'm so glad this church continues to welcome us. They have a lot of ministries at this church in addition to the Sunday service. And that gal right back there who does all the tech is the ministries director, Tabitha. Thank you, Tabitha. Thank you. She's the one who's live streaming it. It's going to be up on YouTube. So I would not do any of that ever. So don't ever ask me. Yeah, you hear me. Okay. Yes, she's back. The bathrooms are across the courtyard. You just go into the social hall. We'll have pizza after the concert, but we're going to have a short break after 5 tellers, because we had 9 tellers today, and we're changing it a little bit because we have music this time and song with Roxanne and Richard. They're going to introduce each story with an appropriate song. I'm just delighted that they're willing to do this. So, at any rate, we will have intermission after the first 5 tellers, and then you can go over and get some coffee or a chocolate chip cookie a la Lydia. Thank you for bringing them, Lydia. And then after the concert, there'll be more time to talk to each other and have pizza. And you better be hungry, because I ordered a lot of pizza. All right, so I think that's it. I'm going to call up the first teller, Eileen. Woo!
It's Halloween. I should be at my neighbor's house sitting around her fire pit, drinking wine with my long red wig and my witch's costume. Instead, I am at Southwest Airlines. It feels like a circus, like a Fellini film. People in makeup and masks and costumes and sequins, milling with sad faces, happy faces, exhausted faces. I am going to see my older sister, Janet. What mask will I need to wear on this trip to New England? I learned early in my life to wear a mask. My mother's words echoed in my mind, "Don't say anything." And so I never rebutted or defended myself. I kept other secrets, wore many masks. Here I am on another trip. What will I find? I know Janet has cancer. I know my younger sister and my niece are exhausted. I wanted to give them a reprieve. They were with her through 3 rounds of chemotherapy, mastectomy, then COVID. Janet refused any more treatments. I'm done, she says. Janet is now in hospice. Traveling 5 hours on this leg from LA to Chicago, I tuck myself in the window seat and wait for sleep. A total of 10 hours travel, arriving at Janet's house in the quiet of the night. Jet lag racks my whole old body. After a good night's sleep, I'm ready to make that brown brew that will bring us together. Something you always told me your husband John did for 45 years. Will I need a mask? Shall I be cheery, neutral, sad? The universe will tell me. I find a Keurig coffee pot and manage to make an unflavored dark roast for myself. I peek in her room. Janet is awake. Good morning. I place the cup on a side table covered with medications, a TV remote, and last night's cold drink. A gravelly voice says, "Hi, did you have a good flight?" Thank God, an easy one. Really smooth, but oh so long. No mask so far. Over the last 2 years, and since Janet's diagnosis, we have grown more kindred through phone calls. We were not close as siblings. She was 6 years older than I. She hated walking me to the beach when she was 15. We shared the same bedroom as kids. In the dark of the night, Dr. Drew would appear ghost-like to attend to your gasping breaths. He would administer some magic, then silently disappeared into the black, and we snuggled back under our blankets. My first memory of you, your lungs invaded by asthma. The nurse is coming today, Janet announces. I begin to sit through daily visits from a certified nursing assistant, a weekly visit from the nurse, intermittently a pastor and a social worker would come. I have been given strict instructions. Do not call an ambulance or a doctor if she is in distress. I am not sure that I could make that decision. I stayed for a month. Brought her morning coffee and simple breakfast. Every night, someone in the family would bring takeout. Once a week, your devoted granddaughter, a nurse, would arrive with Mexican food and a gallon bottle of pre-made margaritas. Janet would hold up her glass and giggle and say, "This is part of my liquids." We laugh. A new bottle appeared every week, no joke. Some waiting in the fridge for other nights. On the day of the visiting pastor, Janet asks him, "Am I being selfish?" "What do you mean?" "I'm angry. I lost a daughter, a husband, and had heart surgery. I thought I was finished." The pastor hesitated. "Maybe you can turn these thoughts into, I've had a good life, a loving husband for 45 years, a wonderful family, and adoring grandchildren." Janet stiffens, then lowers her eyes, processing the words. Janet's ending has not reared its ugly head. We plan. I will return when the weather gets warmer. Will I wear a mask? We are becoming closer, finally. Many times during the visit, she would ask me to lay down beside her. We would drink our coffee and watch the news and diss Trump. Or we would watch her favorite Hallmark movies, always with the but best of all, she would know the who's who and the what's what of the NFL, particularly the New England Patriots and Brady. I was so happy to be there, not only to give my younger sister and me some downtime. It was a chance to create new memories. Those margarita nights, laughing with Megan and Lindsay, those times in bed with Janet. Some trust was built among us on that visit, but not at the expense of who I am now. I have become more authentic with my family. Even if I wanted to, I could not wear a mask. I'm in my 9th decade, yikes. Hell with the BS, and hell with the masks.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, we have.
Next one is Sam.
It's exciting to get applause. We just forget everything. Everyone's supposed to welcome the next teller to the stage. Or, yeah, so you'll be here, Sam.
Thank you. Whoa, mercy, mercy me. No, things ain't what they used to be. No. Mother, mother, there's far too many of you crying. Brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying. You know, we got to find a way to bring love here today. What's going on? Burn, baby, burn. August 11th, 1965. Magnificent Montague. The disc jockey at KGFK would spin those hot records and shout, "Burn, baby, burn." Martha and the Vandellas dancing in the streets all summer long. The incessant heat fueled the racial unrest. It burst open that August Eve in 1965, the beginning of the Watts riots. My brother Tom and I sat on the roof of our View Park home, and we could see the dense billowing smoke starting down on Florence and Western and working its way up. Boom, another store. Boom, another, then another. Black columns of smoke. We turned the TV on, our worst fears were realized. One store after another, plate glass smashed in, looted and torched. Burn, baby, burn was the chant. We called our manager of the building, Reverend John Seaburn. Fast busy signal. Phone lines down, power and gas shut off. Our building occupied the corner of 48th and Western and South Central. My dad had bought the building in 1948. Solid brick building, built in 1926. It had five stores on the street level, 8 apartments and 4 sleeping rooms. And oh yeah, a little post office in the basement you could get to through the hardware store. Pretty neat. Starting at age 7, I'd accompany my dad, Celine, every other Saturday to collect the rent and to do whatever maintenance was necessary. Our day began with apartment 3 and our building manager, Reverend John Seaburn, and his wife. They'd invite us in to discuss what's going on. They always kept their apartment really warm, and it smelled like a blend between coffee and bacon. As a matter of fact, the Rev used to use the old coffee grounds for chaw, and carry around the old coffee can for a spittoon. He was a large, imposing man with big, soft hands and hooded, watery eyes. And when he shook my hand, you got that really great feeling all the way through to his soul. When he spoke, at the end of his sentences, the words would kind of trail off, but his wife would finish his sentences seamlessly. She was the power behind the man. All that changed that August day. The Rev finally called us and said, "Don't come down here. Don't show your face. I'll handle it." Monday morning, school's closed, so I went with my dad to our parking lot in Hollywood, next to Western Costume in the Bronson Gate of Paramount. We were turned away at Crenshaw and Wilshire because of a roadblock. The whole city was shut down. That night on TV, some of the black businesses were spared. We thought we caught a glimpse of our building. And was that a red cross painted on it? And the Rev standing out on the corner with his silver pistol in his hand? He was protecting his home and that of the other tenants, which were more like family. This beautiful old building, once a safe haven, where I learned the building trades and became acquainted with the black community. The next day we got a call from Mrs. Seaburn saying the building was spared, but the Rev's heart was acting up. They needed some medical supplies and groceries. So we took the old car, the 48 Buick. Dad and I went to the Lucky Market up on Slauson between Angeles Vista and Overhill. It was closed, but my dad knew the owner, so he let us in. The shelves were mostly empty. He took us into a back room and we filled 4 large bags. Taking the back street and dodging all the roadblocks, we finally made it to the building. We pulled up where the stairway was. There were 2 black men, young black men, guarding the door. One of them came over to the car and I rolled the window down. "What are you guys doing here?" "We got some supplies for the Rev. Give them to us and get the hell out of here. It's dangerous." And we did. Made a U-turn, not driving too fast. We wove our way back to the house, taking back streets and alleys to avoid the roadblocks. By the following Saturday, martial law had been established. The streets were under control. We decided to go back and take a look. Once on 48th Street, we parked down the way in the residential area and walked in. The area was a total war zone. Broken glass, smoldering piles of trash, and the only one guy in the door this time. He recognized us and let us in. The amazing thing is, when we went inside and started climbing the stairs, it was cool and dark, almost like nothing had ever happened. We made it to apartment 3. Mrs. Seaburn let us in, thanked us for the supplies. There was a young, well-dressed man visiting. He was also a Rev. He introduced himself as Chip, as in Chip off the old block. People said he was so much like his dad. I said, they say the same thing about me, like I'm like my dad. In fact, we have the same name. And the funny thing is, he and I, the Rev and I, had the same birthday, September 26th. We laughed about that. So together we went in to visit Reverend Seaborn. He was sitting up in bed, very calm, almost serene, mumbling, "I've seen the light over and over again." We only stayed a couple minutes. Returning to the living room, Mrs. Seaburn said they want to take him to the hospital, but I won't let him. I want to keep him here with me like I always have. We said our goodbyes, and I knew somewhere down the line I'd see Reverend Chip again. The Reverend Honorable John Seaburn of the Ebenezer Baptist Church entered God's kingdom that week with great honor and reverence. Flowers were scattered around the building on the sidewalk, taking the place of the spent bullets and the broken glass. Epilogue, Sunday, April 27th, last Sunday. I just heard from Reverend Chip an article in the LA Times entitled, "Minister That Changed the City Forever," documented the 27-year tenure and impact of Reverend Chip from the first AME church during and after the 1992 riots, Los Angeles riots. He had picked up the mantle of the peaceful warrior, expanding the legacy of Reverend Seaburn. I have seen the light.
You'd like to see me, I guess.
I forgot to introduce you.
It's okay. It was wonderful. I'm so glad to have heard that again. Please come up, Karen Miller.
I'm a survivor, I'm not gonna give up, I'm not gonna stop, I'm gonna work harder, I'm a survivor, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna survive, keep on surviving, I'm a survivor, I'm not gonna give up.
Well, the title of my story is Crushed. It's tough to raise a teenager, but it's even tougher yet to be one. I was 12 years old, living a normal girl, living in a nice middle-class community with my parents. I was looking forward to joining all my friends in junior high school. Pasadena was a nice, safe community with pretty homes. And my friends, they lived almost next door. And my school was just a few blocks away. My father, however, had other plans that I knew nothing about. He suffered from grandiose ambitions. His pride made him feel that his family should own their own house. So with his meager salary, he tried to find something that he could afford. Well, one day he drove us to a new city 40 miles east called Azusa to show us what he had bought. My mother and I were horrified. It was a lot, a tiny little scrap of land reclaimed from a rock crushing company. Little did I know that for the next 6 years of my life, I would also be crushed. A few rundown houses existed in that area, but all we could see at our future home was a pile of sand covered with endless, huge rocks. Every weekend, my mother and my father and me, and sometimes my grandfather, cleared the land. We dug up heavy rocks, put them in piles until we were sore and tired. I miss my friends who were having fun getting ready for our new junior high school. Sheer stubborn determination on my father's part for almost a year miraculously resulted in a small stone house which he built with his own 2 hands. So we moved in. My new school straddled 2 towns. Glendora, a beautiful, gorgeous suburb, and Azusa, filled with working class folks. These towns were divided by rock crushers and cement businesses. I naturally gravitated to the Glendora kids. We made friends. I enjoyed getting out of my dumpy rock house in the slum part of town to spend time in their beautiful, beautiful mansions. I began to feel almost like a normal teenager. But another disaster struck. My father had a terrible accident at work. It broke his neck and back, and it made him unable to work for for many years. During this crisis, my mother was pregnant, in her mid-40s and in very poor health. The only source of money we had to live on was public welfare. So at the age of 13, all of a sudden, I was put in charge of the whole household. That consisted of my parents, a brother and a sister, and I cleaned the house and bought the groceries, cooked the food, and pretty much took care of everything. Even my parents' own personal problems. My overwhelmed mother cried miserably most of the time. My dad couldn't get out of bed even for almost a year. The doctors put him on a pill regime of reds, blues, yellows, in other words, phenobarbital, seconal, nematol, and all the other addictive drugs at the time. When they discovered that he couldn't get off those pills, they put him in a state mental hospital for many, many months. Meantime, I started going downhill. The well-to-do girls' friends noticed that my appearance was starting to look kind of shabby and I was out of style. I really had no money anyway to time to join them in the fun activities. I was soon forgotten and left out. So I started hanging out with a destitute neighbor family of 12 children who just to get out of my home. No attention was paid to me because frankly my parents never cared where I was or when I came home, just as long as I kept everything together. I felt like one of those rocks that we had dug up every weekend. My mother then had a baby with a cleft palate and a club foot, and when she was only a year old, just covered with third-degree burns from a neighborhood accident. Most of my teenage time was spent in hospital waiting rooms, mental hospital visits, and welfare offices. The baby was put in my bedroom for lack of any other space in our tiny home, and she cried a lot. She became my responsibility along with a lot of schoolwork and chores. My only teenage friends became small-time petty thieves and a religious freak and a girl who got pregnant at the age of 13, and all these were just a way to get out of my depressing home. My irrepressible spirit and bright mind became dim and dampened. And I did things without even thinking of the consequences anymore, like staying out too late with shady kids. Because it really didn't matter anymore. I had no chance to progress like a normal teenager who could enjoy the latest fashions, boy crazes, and all the other fun things. All I could think of was escape. I paced through each day feeling like a tiger in a pin-up cage. Escape really mattered to me, so my plan was to succeed in any way I could and become totally independent. My eventual escape did come through good grades and scholastic rewards. I finished high school at the age of 15 and went away to Whittier College, supported by various scholarships and grants. My kind roommates taught me how to really learn to be a fun teenager, and I enjoyed success by getting a lot of scholastic awards, joining activities, joining clubs, and I formed strong alliances with all my professors, earning everything with straight A's, all my grades. So it had been 6 years of crushing during my junior high and high school years, but somehow I was not broken. Now, as I look back, I realized that throughout my whole life, I've never stopped learning. Out of my 7 advanced degrees that I have, my last one was a systems engineering degree. So maybe I had inherited some of my father's stubborn determination, and their rock pressure did not destroy me. Woo!
Thank you, Caron. Our next one to call up. Next reader is Lydia. She's not a reader, she's a teller. Oh, okay. Come on up. And we're gonna have to place ourselves a little differently, Tabitha said, so ask her where to stand. Is that okay, Tabitha? Okay.
If you see me walking down the street and I start to cry each time we meet, walk on by, don't stop, walk on by. Foolish pride, that's all that I have left, so let me hide and walk on by.
The title of my story is Eating Humble Pie. Making new friends and at the same time losing my 10-pound spare tire here on my waist, that's a good deal. I met Maggie at a volunteers meeting. We quickly realized that we lived in the same neighborhood. She told me that she walked on my street every day with her best friend, Katie. I said, I used to walk every day, but now I lost interest for some reason. Maggie then said, why don't you join us? But I must warn you, we are fast walkers. If you're good with that, we'll pick you up tomorrow at 6 p.m. I love it. Yes, I'll be ready tomorrow by 6. I'm so glad they are speed walkers. My time walking with my slowpoke friends are over. Then a little voice said, Lydia, what are you talking about? You're a slowpoke too. When was the last time that we walked fast? 15 years ago? You better stick with yoga and Zumba. I just canceled. I ignored my little voice because I can take a challenge. I'll be fine. The next day, by 5:55, I was waiting by my door. I felt like a kindergartner waiting to go out and play with their playmates. I saw my new friends at the distance and they waved at me. I thought they were going to stop to talk to me, but they kept walking. Oh, right away I noticed they were really fast walkers. On a scale of 1 to 10, they were a 10. I was a 5. They were the Michael Jordan of walkers. We walk on Aviso Street, Patera, Avocado, all those streets. And I started to feel sweat on my forehead and down my back. My legs started to hurt a little and my heart was complaining, but I was making new friends and losing my 10-pound spare tire. And anyways, we're about to be done. When I look at my watch, to my horror, I discovered that we've been walking for 10 minutes. Then Maggie said, Lydia, you see that steep hill down there, goes around all the way back there? We've never been there. We want to go there. Do you want to go? My little voice quickly said, say no, say no. I ignored my little voice again. I said, sure, why not? We went down the hill and it wasn't that bad at all. The problem was coming up the hill. I immediately felt sweat all over my hair. My legs started to hurt. My heart, I could hear my heart beating. I tried to catch up with them, but I couldn't. I felt I was climbing Mount Everest. And And to make matters worse, Katie decided to ask questions that required long explanation. From up there, they said, "Hey Lydia, what are you doing this weekend?" "Están locas esas mujeres, desquiciadas de mente." Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? Okay, I'm gonna try to say this shortest word possible. Babysitting, no, no, no. Too many syllables. Gardening, no. I had to save oxygen save my brain cells. So in my best Puerto Rican accent, I said, "Read!" Needless to say, by this time, I was fighting for my life. My legs felt like jelly. I was drenched in sweat going up that hill, and my heart was beating faster than a mad drummer. I pictured myself dying at that moment. I imagined Katie calling the police to tell them that I was dying. And Maggie would run to tell my husband, Dave, who is back there, to tell him that I was dead, when in fact those two killers killed me. All of a sudden, I heard my little voice saying, "Lydia, stop whining and suck it up. You're going up that hill, and when you get there, you're going to tell those two that you're going home." This time, I listened to my little voice. I don't know how I made it to the top of the hill. When I got there, they were jogging in place with a big smile on their faces, saying, "That was so much fun. But we've been walking only for half an hour. We want to go down the hill again." "What?" And I said, I'm not going. I'm going home." "Oh my God, Lydia, what happened to you? Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Do you need help?" "No, I'm going home." "Okay, we'll pick you up tomorrow at 6. "No, I have a class," I lied. "Okay, then we'll pick you the day after." No, I'm so busy this summer." I lied again. "Well, okay, goodbye." "Thank you." As they're going downhill, Katie tells Maggie, "Hey, this time let's go faster. It will be good practice for the marathon." "What? They run marathons?" At this point, I swallowed the little pride I had left and ate a big slice of humble pie and made it home. When I got home, my husband asked me about the walk, and I explained to him what happened. And I said, "Honey, after all, I won't be making new friends, and guess I'll keep my 10-pound spare tire. But after all, honey, it doesn't look that bad, right?" Dave looked at me with big eyes, knowing that it was a trick question. And he said, "Oh no, honey, you're fine. Don't worry about that." I learned a couple of things about this experience. One was that I have to start listening to my inner voice, because getting wiser, finally. And the second thing I learned is that I have to appreciate my slowpoke friends, because after all, I'm a slowpoke now. You might wonder what happened to Katie and Maggie. I don't know. Because every day at 6 o'clock, I'm hiding in my backyard. Thank you. Welcome with a big round of applause our friend and next storyteller, Patty.
knows I had a secret love that lived within the heart of me. All too soon my secret love became impatient to be free. Now I shout it from the highest hill, even to the golden daffodil. At last, my heart's an open door, and my secret love's no secret, because I'm free.
Can you hear me? Is everybody hearing me? My story is actually part of an autobiography that I'm writing to leave my children. So this is just one segment of it, but it's an interesting segment, I think. It's called Hollywood Days. My dad remarried again and moved us into this darling house in the Hollywood Hills. And in the summer, I spent most of my days enjoying those hills. Time for a new school. Yikes, how was I going to act? Last year in that strict boarding school, when I had to stand when a teacher entered the room, this year I had no one to ask. I had spent most of my summer alone exploring my surroundings in the Hollywood Hills and loving every minute of it. By chance, I found an old elevator off Hightower Drive, and that took me up behind the Hollywood Bowl, and I snuck through a hole in the fence and witnessed these wonderful ballets. Unfortunately, I never got a chance to see the end of them, as it was getting dark so fast, and I had to climb back into my house and up the stairs. But I loved the spectacle, and I've loved ballet ever since. When it was time for the new school year, I was slightly nervous. But I quickly made new friends who seemed to be fascinated by my odd stories of a strict boarding school where we all had to stand up if an adult entered the room, discipline and rules. I hated it, and the only plus from that boarding school is that it did advance my knowledge by a year in most subjects. And I flew through those grades from that year on and never thought a thing about it. Of course, when I kept bringing home A's, I expected something good as a reward, or something. I heard of kids getting dollars for every A they got. I just got, "Good show, Patty," from my father in that particular British way of a compliment. I was a good little kid until high school, and then I went a little wild. But I always got good grades, though wild or not, but I never got any dollars for them. My wanderings got my first job at a funny old lady store called Moto Day on Hollywood Boulevard, which sold ugly, ugly printed house dresses and grandma nightgowns. I lied and said I was 12, but I was actually only 11. But the owner didn't care. I was almost free labor to her. She put me in the back room to iron these ugly dresses. Now, I had never, ever held an iron in my life. But again, it didn't matter to her until I burned the hem of one of those hideous dresses. She went crazy, screaming at me. I was so scared I immediately ran out the front door, and that ended my first career in the name of fashion. I luckily went next door to Newbury 5 and Dime and got a job immediately with no questions asked, and was put behind the record department and got to demonstrate 45 records for the customers, and I loved it. It was just the best job I could have at that age, but that long walk home after that nasty steep hill finally got to me, and I hoarded my money and gave up the situation and the job for a while. Let's see. In general, I was very active in school and got the lead in the big Hollywood High school production, which because I was Hollywood High, where Lana Turner was discovered, the movie scouts made regular visits to these particular productions, trying to cast another Lana or Carol Burnett, alumni of this popular school. But I didn't get picked, unfortunately. It was very sad. I thought maybe I'd be one that was chosen. I didn't know what for I was going to be chosen, but I was hoping to be chosen. I wasn't. After that play, I realized I needed to make some money. I had run out of my little stash from a couple of years before, and I landed a fabulous job at the Broadway department store in Hollywood. When I was in the 11th grade, I was sent out with other girls for the interview and got the job, and really didn't know what it was, but I was told I would be the only one to represent Hollywood High in the new junior wear department. And it was so cute. I was given this short plaid Scottish skirt like a kilt, and also this jaunty little cap that sat on my head. And I would be helping to put on junior fashion shows, and twice a year, this was a big deal, we would be taken on a bus to all the other Broadway stores with the other high debs from other schools and model the new junior looks for that year. How exciting, I thought, when all I wanted was a simple job. It was a great opportunity, and I felt so lucky, and it was so much fun. I was sort of sad when that job ended, but I knew by then I was going for something special, and that was not going to UCLA for 4 more years of school. Freedom once again at 18, I literally had a chance to do it, and I did, on my own, wild and free, at least for a few years until life got so deadly serious.
Yeah, that's right, Patty. It's intermission. You're right. We'll take a quick break. There's coffee and there are some chocolate cookies over across the courtyard if you like, and there are restrooms over there too. Is this on even?
Yes.
It is? Okay, it doesn't sound like it. Okay, so we'll see you in about 5 minutes and finish up with Michael Jackson, Deborah, Ann, and Karen.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Now it's okay, good. We're gonna get to talk more after. I'm looking at hand signals, I can't see very well. We're gonna get to talk more over pizza after the show. So right now I'm gonna call Michael up.
Bad luck, baby, put the tricks on me. I got the heebie-jeebies and I can't get well. Heebie-jeebies and it's you I got to tell. If I can't find luck, you know darn well I'm gonna ring your door till I break your bell. I'm gonna jump back, baby, jump back, oh, 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 jump back, baby, jump back. Bad luck, baby, put the jinx on me.
That Heebie-Jeebies was a song written by my mother. And Little Richard performed it. And it goes with what I'm reading. The name of my story is Discounted Robbery. Okay. The sun was shining in Los Angeles. The Russians had Sputnik, but I had a new transistor radio too. Polio had ceased to be a problem. My family was happy, and there was peace in my world. I was 10 years old, and I was excited about testing my new red and yellow model airplane at Trinity Street School. On the way to Trinity Street, my best friend's younger brother Cortez decided to tag along with me. We climbed the fence and started setting up to fly the plane. All of a sudden, Cortez turned and ran towards the fence that we had climbed to get back in. All of a sudden, when I looked around to see what Cortez was reacting to, I saw a gas-head bully outside the fence, walking along the perimeter. And he was looking at me like lunch. So all of a sudden he jumped over the fence and he starts to come in my direction. Now, at this point, some of you might be wondering what a gas-head bully is or was. A gashead was a street thug with a certain hairstyle that was popular. And so, you know, usually when you ran into people that were wearing that style, there's gonna be some drama or whatever, especially I was a square, not very large, you know, for my size, you know. So, you know, I was always on the lookout for these guys, but this time this guy just showed up. And so since I had my airplane with me, I had no opportunity to get all my airplane stuff, get over the fence before the guy could get to me. So anyway, when you're confronted by a gas head back in the day, there was a lot to be known about the person you were dealing with by the style of his hair. The volume of hair, the color, whether it was curled or waved or in good position, or in good condition, all of those were indicators as to how much trouble you were in. And so anyway, encountering a group of people wearing this hairstyle, like, anybody remember POP or any of that? Yeah, if you went to the fair, you anywhere, you see a group of these guys coming towards you, and this hairstyle that a lot of them wore, it had a front. And so when you watch these fronts coming towards you, it was like a school of sharks, dorsal fin cutting through the water towards some prey. And I felt like prey when the gas had got to where I was, and he pulled a knife on me. And he said, if you don't give me your money, I'm gonna cut your ears off. So after momentarily visualizing myself without ears, I asked him, I said, well, how's your sister Jackie? Well, I'm going in my pocket, you know. And so when I mentioned his sister Jackie, he stopped pointing the knife directly at me, and he asked, well, how do you know my sister Jackie? I said, oh, you know, classmates, we cool, you know. So I could tell it mattered that I knew his sister, but I could tell I was still in the hood. Okay. So anyway, I said, man, I'm carrying $3, and Mother's Day is coming up. And I was planning on spending that money on my mom. And so he said, give me half of your money. While he was closing up his night, you know? So there was a faint tone of disappointment in his voice that I had heard businessmen use when they sold things wholesale to one another. And so, but he stuck to what he said. So, anyway, as it turned out, with 25% off for knowing his sister, and 25% off for Mother's Day, I virtually reattached my ears for 75 cents a piece. So that was a bargain no emergency hospital could match. And I also wanted to say there's people in this room that enjoy hearing stories about me being in a tight spot. And that was thank you very much. Debbie?
Grace, it's a name for a girl. It's also a thought that could change the world. And when she walks down the street, you can hear the strains. Grace finds beauty in everything. What once was hurt, what once was friction, what left a mark no longer stays, because grace finds beauty in ugly things.
Okay, so my name is Debbie, and the name of my story is called Ruth Ann. Ruth Ann was my twin. She was born 4 minutes after me. Our birth was so traumatic that a priest was there ready to baptize us so that our little souls would not go to purgatory. We fought in our mother's womb. I won and came out first. At 4 pounds and 1 ounce, I was bigger and stronger than my twin. We were placed in incubators, and even though I was ready to go home before Ruth Ann, I was kept in the hospital. My mom told me, your presence calmed your sister. Ruth Ann was the pretty one. Her eyes were so big and green that they took over her whole face. She was the girl with the faraway eyes. I often wondered years later if Ruth Ann had undiagnosed special needs because of the trauma surrounding our birth. She was quiet and shy. Mom always said to me, you are the smart one. Ruth Ann is the pretty one. You are responsible for your twin. You are older. We're talking 4 minutes here. Ours was a love-hate relationship. Often we'd go to school with scratches and bruises from our fights. As much as we fought, I was always the first to defend Ruth Ann. It was my duty as her protector. We were opposites, yet so connected. I loved dogs. She loved cats. I was dark. She was light. I was a twin with a big smile in every photo. Ruth Ann never smiled. Ruth Ann told me right before her death that because I was faster and smarter and better than her at everything, she just gave up. She stopped competing with me. I wish I would have let her win sometimes. Maybe her life would have turned out differently. When we were 16 years old, I went to a Buddhist meeting to tell them to leave her alone. We were raised Catholic, and I was suspicious of them. Were they worshiping the devil? I had to find out and protect my twin. Ruth Ann quit those meetings and I became a Buddhist. True story, yes. Our mom was married and divorced 6 times. She started her own computer business without even a high school diploma. We went to over a dozen schools with an absentee father and not so nice stepfathers. Mom made it clear, when you're 18, you're out. Ruth Ann and I went separate ways when she left home at 17 and disappeared. She spent decades on the streets, on and off the streets, showing up at my front door periodically, simply to clean up. Clean up enough to go out and hit those streets again. The last 2 decades, she lived in a halfway house. I promised Ruth Ann, you can live with me if you can complete 1 year of sobriety. That never happened. Ruth Ann lived with so much pain that the only way she could survive, to bear being in her body, was to numb herself. I visited her weekly until her last year, when I saw her more often. She loved to smoke. I'd bring her cigarettes. I'd bribe her with those smokes. I'd say, we have to pray first, and then you can smoke. Our prayers grounded us and made our visits so much more bearable. She loved her son, Christian, and often we'd call him on our visits. Towards the end, we danced together, bringing back memories of dancing with our mom, our aunts, our cousins, and our beloved grandmother at family gatherings. It brought us both so much joy. After that dance episode, we were the talk of the town. Nobody in that nursing home ever looked at me the same way. Because of my sister, I am humbled. She taught me to be more empathetic and loving. When we were in our 20s, I remember being ashamed of Ruth Ann. Her purse was a paper bag. I'm a better person because of her, and I'm filled with gratitude for her presence in my life. She was incredibly courageous and had an integrity that inspired me to be a better person, even when she carried a paper bag as a purse and lost all her physical beauty. She still held on to her integrity. People told me, you need to institutionalize her, but I knew her freedom was important to her. She chose her lifestyle. On our last visit, the day before she passed, we had a special moment. I was asked by the staff to stay outside. That was weird. After over hundreds of visits, I'd never been asked to stay outside the building. I wanted to ask them why, but instead I just went outside and the sun was shining brightly in my face. I just prayed to that shining sun. Feeling its warmth and light was rejuvenating and inspiring me. I asked God to bring me the love and the light and the warmth that I was feeling back to Ruth Ann. I cried and I prayed and I cried and I prayed to the sun until they came out and told me it's okay to go back inside now. It was divine timing. We said the Lord's Prayer 3 times. Usually, we only said it once. I told Ruth Ann that Jesus and the angels were with us and guiding us towards love. Fear not, you are loved and not alone, I said. She died the next morning. God bless my twin. She will forever live in my heart. I know that she's with the angels and in a much better place now. As I continue to go on with my life without my twin, I'm filled with gratitude for the time we spent together. Joan Didion wrote, "Grief, when it comes, is nothing like we expect it to be." Boy, was she right. I never expected to miss Ruth Ann so much. I learned from my twin that grace is being present without judgment. On the 1-year anniversary of her death, Ruth Ann showed up. I was lying in bed in a hotel room in Assisi, Italy. She was beautiful, and her hair was floating off her smiling face. She said to me, "Don't be afraid. You are loved and not alone. Don't feel bad. I am happy now, and you are a good sister."
Oh.
Next is our beloved Buxie to tell her story.
Did I ever tell you you're my hero? Everything I like to be. I can fly higher than an eagle for you. You are the wind beneath my wings.
The title of my story is Housekeeping, Frontline Work. A run line is a nautical term. It's to sail continually on one course. My folks established a run line for me. I call it my first wind. Their wind, by which I mean their examples, showed me how to meet the trials of life. I grew up in Yuma, Arizona, in a 1950s neighborhood full of kids. We had spend the nights, ran in and out of each other's homes, in and out of the sprinklers. On Saturdays, one of my least favorite chores was dusting. Mom always reminded me, moisten the rag a little, just enough to pick up the dust, but not smear it. I didn't know it, but I was already an apprentice, on-the-job training in home economics. Mom was my mentor. A Mayan friend says the wife is the owner of the house. Little by little, the child learns her mother's work. My friend Carrie, in her 90s, agrees about the role of housewife, to make order, to take care of family, to be a role model. Mom managed the house. One of her principles was stick-to-itiveness. You make a commitment, you live up to it. Dinner was at 6 p.m. every night when Dad came home from work. I set the table, prepared Dad's iced tea, put ice in the ice bucket. My brother and I sat on one side of the table, Dad at the head, Mom on the other side, where she had a good look at us to correct our manners. She'd remind us elbows off the table, napkin in your lap, chew with your mouth closed. Dinner was when we shared news of the day. We were expected to remain seated until we were all finished. Those were the courtesies, and there were more. I had a horse named Sunday. Mom believed if you have an animal, you need to tend it daily. It was the unspoken duty of owning. Every morning, before Mom took us to school, we'd drive down Avenue B to the valley where my horse was boarded. I'd call her name as I approached her pen. She'd nicker back to me. When there wasn't time to ride into the desert, I'd lunge her on a long lead rope around the corral. I learned how to clean her hooves, take care of her. Most of all, I loved her smell, pressing my nose into her warm seal brown neck. After college in 1970, I moved to Los Angeles. I remember being asked, what do you do? I wasn't a movie star. I wasn't even blonde. Knew nothing about sex, drugs, or rock and roll. I felt like an alien. But 3 years later, I did marry. 7 years after that, we had a daughter. At one point in my 40s, I managed our homeowners association. Afraid to do it wrong, I'd often call the board president for direction. He was a working attorney. After one such call, he told me, Ann, you're the manager. Manage. One loaded word, telling me accept the authority vested in me. And there was another turning point in my mid-70s, at home during COVID in Malibu, stuck inside with wood floors and glass walls. I noticed all the work needed to keep our house in order. I asked my cousin Dave about housework. He and my husband knew more about cleaning than I ever would. In their younger years, they worked in the family furniture store cleaning used stoves, ovens, and refrigerators. About housework, Dave said you can manage it or have it manage you. How much energy you put into it, who's to say? What do you mean, I asked. It's about conservation and energy, he said. I was aware of the realities of my waning energy. I had to invest it wisely. Would it be the kitchen floor or my writing? I was to say, I'm the author of my story. Linda Hirschman, a lawyer, professor, and cultural historian, describes housework and child rearing as intellectually stagnant and soul-crushing. On the one hand, Hirschman bemoans the loss of women from the workforce. Their absence meant that more than half the American population would be underrepresented in places where policy was made. What? Policies first made in the home, around kitchen tables. It's where I became community-minded, where I learned the value of holding a conversation, asking questions, listening to each other, A friend reminded me intimate relationships are at the core of life, and those relationships have a downstream effect on everything else you do. My dad once told me, I never asked someone to give what I'm not willing to give. Are we taught generosity? Are we taught the difference between blame and forgiveness? These approaches to life become family values. They flow downstream. They reflect in the community. I began to participate more actively in Malibu, suggested the city inaugurate a Poet Laureate program, became the city's 4th laureate. I used the opportunity to develop occasions for people to gather. Without these occasions, at the core of a healthy community, how could we learn to serve together, not at the expense of another, or even agree on the principles we were serving? I even joined the Optimist Club. Whether we're raised on the south side or north side, we watch how the house where we live is kept. When my friend's granddaughter, Maddie, was asked by her teacher, "What's your hobby?" she said, "Home." Then the teacher asked, "What do you do well?" And she said, "Life." Maddie was 7 years old. I'm 75 now. I've begun to suspect there's more to life than I have ever known. I once asked Dad, "What's your secret?" He told me I've had good days and better days. I can't profess to having many bad days. There are days ahead. Like Maddie, I will do them well. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for my first wind, for believing I'd amount to something, and for you, Rick, a great husband, and for really all of you here. And to Nora Ephraim, I know where the butter is. And for you, Ms. Hirschman, in our home, we all butter our own toast. And our last reader is Caron Perkal.
Social event, and a person I had met casually but never had much conversation with came up and asked me to tell them about myself. They skipped the usual questions like, what did I do for a living, where did I grow up, and went right to religion. They wanted to know what I believed. They also wanted to tell me what they believed. They said they'd explored many different things. Gurus, from the Eastern type all the way to the Anthony Robbins type. She can come up here if she wants. They'd been into Hinduism and Buddhism. Sorry about my dog. She's part of the story, so she can come up. Sorry. I never had a dog before. They're very faithful. Like some others. Anyway, so they've explored many different things from the Eastern type all the way to the Anthony Robbins type. They've been into Hinduism and Buddhism, but decided that they were the happiest on Christmas Day when they were a kid with their parents. And you know who that holiday is about, they said. And I just didn't want to get into all that because it's kind of sticky territory. So they wanted to know if I believed in God or not. And I do have my beliefs, but I'm not sure I can really name them. I know that I've been thinking all week about writing this story and what am I going to tell a story about? The day I witnessed one of the kindest things ever has come to mind. I'm sorry, I'm used to telling it, so I'm having a hard time reading it. I'm just going to read it. Sorry, because of my glasses. The day I witnessed one of the kindest things ever has come to mind. Or the day of my father's death. The day my Uncle Alan died, when his dog, who's now my dog, barked and barked at the men from the Neptune Society as they wheeled my uncle's body out of his apartment. The serious expressions on those men's faces as Arf yelped. One of the men wearing a yarmulke. His religion clearly visible. I grew up Jewish and I wore a necklace with a chai on it as a kid. It's a letter of the Hebrew alphabet that stands for life, I think. That's how much I know about my religion. But I do know about the day I had a fight with my husband and was driving down Bundy Drive. I was stopped at a signal, probably thinking about what a jerk my husband was, which I often thought about, which often spread to all men in general. I noticed a woman sprawled face up on the sidewalk, passed out, most likely homeless. Next to her was a broken bottle of booze, vodka spilled on the sidewalk. She didn't have a shirt on, her breasts exposed in the California sun. Her flesh was so pale. She was so vulnerable there. Vulnerable to judgments, vulnerable to assault, vulnerable to ridicule. The man in the truck behind me got out, ran over to her, took off his t-shirt and laid it over her. She didn't move. Maybe would never know he had done it, but I had seen it. I had seen the man give her her dignity back. I'd seen him make her safe again. I was knocked out of my thoughts as I witnessed this incredible act of kindness. Was I there at this signal just for that? Was the act for her or for me witnessing it? Or for me telling it to you now? Is this God? Is this how he works? I can't tell you. I can tell you about the time I was going through a divorce years later. I was depressed and spent most of my time in bed. Honestly, I didn't really want to live any longer. My pain was more than emotional. It felt like I had a hatchet in my heart, an open, bleeding wound. At the same time as my husband decided to leave me, my father was diagnosed with cancer. One night at about 3 in the morning, his brother Lee called me. "You need to come over. I don't think he's going to make it through the night," he said. I drove my car across town, the LA streets eerily barren. When I arrived at my father's apartment, there was my Uncle Lee, the hospice nurse, and my father on his back in the bed. I asked him, "Do you want me to call Rick?" My brother, who lived in Madison, Wisconsin at the time. "I think I'm too weak to talk on the phone," he said. The air was thick with a feeling of important business being done here. Slow business, like a birth, but not a birth. Not a passing into this world, but a passing out of it. And we were all here to help him. Weeks before, my father had told me he had a bottle of Valium in his jacket pocket in the closet. "If it gets really bad, give it to me," he had said. Both of us innocent to hospice and their penchant for morphine. But father had told me about the Valium, all I was thinking was how I was going to take the whole bottle once he passed. Get rid of this pain in my chest once and for all. I knew I couldn't kill myself when he was alive, but once he was dead, I definitely could. As 3:30 a.m. turned into 4:30 a.m., my father half sat up and shouted, "Call Ricky." It was as though he had been given a signal, but by who? An angel? God? Something otherworldly. Lee and I called, but the phone was busy again and again and again. Rick's wife had just had a baby. She must have taken the phone off the hook, obviously before cell phones. Luckily, my brother lived in Madison, Wisconsin. We called the police, who sent the sheriff to knock on his door, tell him his father was dying. My father waited for that phone to ring. The last words I heard him say were, "You were a good son," before he dropped the phone on his chest and fell back asleep. An hour or so later, as Lee and I were dozing off in the other room, the hospice nurse came in and said, "It's time." And it was. Soon, I could finally grab that Valium. But as I stood by my father's bed, watched my uncle gently pass his hand over his brother's eyelids, close them, I heard a voice say, "I learned about love from her." And it was as though a finger pointed at my heart, and I could feel all of the love come out of my father's body and go into mine. In that moment, I knew we are made out of love. And it may not be the only thing, but it's the first thing God is going to ask about when we get over there. What did you learn about love? My Uncle Lee pocketed the Valium, and over the next few months, I was able to go forward, move on in my life. In the next year, there was a sign after sign that my dad or God, something, was helping me. I used to go to this church on Tuesday evenings, listen to talks there. There were 3 words etched into the stained glass panels behind the podium. God is love. I used to read them over and over, as I sometimes listened, sometimes didn't. I tangled with those words, tried to really understand them. But some things you really need to experience. Whether it's a small dog cursing out the strangers that are taking her favorite person away, a spontaneous act of gallantry, or a father giving the last of what he has to a daughter he cannot protect anymore. There's only one thing that makes this world go round. You can call it God, but I'm going to call it love. Come on, have you ever seen a rose?
Rick, come on up here, Rick. Yeah. Come on, you all sing along with us, because we're family here. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and say, come on, y'all. We are family. I got
said, we're gonna have a picture taken of us. And there is gluten-free pizza, remember, over there, so ask for it.